Humanity has always dreamed of an apocalypse from space. Meteors, aliens, giant volcanoes. But the truth? We were almost wiped out by something so tiny it fits in a sneeze. Yes, a virus. The microscopic villain that doesn't need bombs, just a runny nose to turn cities into graveyards. And it wasn't just once. From Athens to the Spanish flu, from smallpox to COVID-19, we've survived so many pandemics that we basically collect near extinctions like duplicate trading cards. You're only breathing right now because your ancestors were stubborn enough to survive fevers, skin rashes, and deadly coughs. In other words, you are the result of centuries of biological bad luck disguised as survival. Today, we're revisiting the moments when a virus almost sent humanity straight to the history bin. Spoiler, you're gonna feel lucky to be alive and maybe a little more sympathetic toward last week's cold. Before diving into this guided tour of viral apocalypses, do this. Subscribe to the channel now. Because if the next virus decides to get even more creative, at least you'll die subscribed, which is more than a lot of people managed. Also, hit the notification bell because you never know. It might alert you before the mutation hits. And give that like, because the only thing more contagious than a virus is the YouTube algorithm. There. Now that you've got your dose of digital antibodies, let's explore the times humanity was almost wiped out by a collective sneeze. 5. The Plague of Athens, 430 BC. Let's go back to 430 BC, in the middle of the Peloponnesian War. Athens was surrounded by Sparta, everyone crammed inside the city walls, basically living in the worst possible version of a collective Airbnb. And as if war, heat, and overcrowding weren't enough, an unexpected guest showed up, a mysterious epidemic. Reports speak of high fevers, insatiable thirst, nasty ulcers, and rapid deaths. No one knew exactly what it was. Smallpox, typhus, measles, didn't really matter. What they knew was that people were dropping like dominoes. And it wasn't just ordinary citizens, soldiers and even political leaders were taken by the disease, including Pericles, Athens' great strategist who died of fever, leaving the city leaderless. The result? Beyond losing people, the polis lost morale. The enemy didn't even need swords to win, they just had to wait for the plague to do its job. And here comes the irony. While today we complain about forced remote work, the Athenians had the first and most traumatic experience of collective home office in history. Only in their case, the afternoon coffee included praying you wouldn't die coughing. Ever imagined losing a war not to swords but to a deadly runny nose? Yeah, Athens learned that lesson the hard way. 4. Smallpox. Centuries of terror. If there's one virus that had a long career, it's smallpox. It emerged thousands of years ago and traveled the world like a deadly backpacker. Unlike wars, which at least need soldiers, smallpox only needed a handshake or a cough in the wrong place to turn entire cities into morgues. With an absurd mortality rate, reaching 30% or more in some outbreaks, smallpox spared no one. Survivors were left disfigured, permanently marked with scars that daily reminded them they had won life's macabre lottery. It wasn't just peasants or anonymous soldiers who fell. Kings, emperors, and even pharaohs succumbed to the virus. Smallpox didn't care about social class. It killed from palace to hut, proving it was far more efficient than any army. And here comes the inevitable sarcasm. It was a virus that claimed more victims than many generals combined. The difference? It didn't need battle plans, just human contact. Centuries later, humanity got its revenge with the invention of the vaccine, and smallpox was officially eradicated in 1980. one of the few times we truly defeated an invisible enemy. 3. The Spanish Flu, 1918. World War I had finally ended. After years of muddy trenches, mustard gas, and machine guns spitting fire, the world breathed a sigh of relief. Or at least tried to. Because as soon as the soldiers returned home, they brought along an unwelcome gift, the Spanish flu. Within months, the virus spread at the speed of a viral WhatsApp message. Entire cities were infected, hospitals overflowed, and cemeteries became so crowded there was barely room to bury the dead. It's estimated that the pandemic killed between 50 and 100 million people, more than the war that had just ended. The irony was almost cruel. The war was over, but the flu killed more than all the weapons combined. And the enemy wore no uniform, needed no army. A single sneeze could wreak more havoc than entire battalions. The cultural and social impact was huge. Masks became part of daily life, events were canceled, and fear hung in the air. Literally. It was as if the world had swapped the mud of the trenches for a massive hospital corridor. Imagine surviving the trenches, bullets, and explosions, only to be defeated by a collective sneeze? For millions, that was history's cruel joke. 2. HIV/AIDS, decades of global panic. In the 1980s, while the world was celebrating big hair, shoulder pads, and the rise of video games, a microscopic enemy emerged to remind everyone that the party had an end. HIV. Suddenly, an unknown virus began spreading panic on a global scale. The problem wasn't just the disease itself, but the social stigma that came with it. HIV became fuel for prejudice, moral judgments, and fear campaigns that treated infected people like ticking bombs. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the hysteria was almost as deadly as the virus itself. Apocalyptic headlines, irrational fear of physical contact, conspiracy theories. It felt like a season of Black Mirror, only without a pause button. Over the decades, science advanced. Treatments emerged, mortality rates dropped, and the disease stopped being an immediate death sentence. Yet, the truth remains harsh. Millions have died, and HIV still exists today. It was the virus that became a symbol of taboo before it became a symbol of scientific research. In the end, it didn't just take lives, it also changed behaviors forever. From widespread condom use to the way we think about public health and intimacy. 1. Coronavirus, 2019 to 2022. And then we arrive at the freshest episode in our collection of near apocalypses, the coronavirus. The invisible enemy that in the 21st century managed to do what even world wars hadn't, bring the entire planet to a halt. Suddenly, everyone was stuck at home, eyeing even their own cats suspiciously. Endless lockdowns, masks on every corner, bottles of hand sanitizer fought over like liquid gold. The global economy collapsed, travel was canceled, schools turned into Zoom screens, and the new normal was basically waiting for the next case update live stream. The social impact was as strong as the biological one. Loneliness, anxiety, families separated, fake news spreading faster than the virus itself, and polarization so toxic it felt like a second pandemic. And of course, the cherry on top. Toilet paper became a luxury item. A microscopic virus turned supermarket aisles into war zones over 2-ply rolls. In the end, millions died, billions had their lives turned upside down, and humanity gained another collective scar. And if COVID already flipped the world this way, imagine the next level. Maybe it's time to accept that complaining about Wi-Fi will never feel so serious again. The day the wrong virus could appear. If history has shown us one thing,
It's that things can always get worse, because all these outbreaks, as devastating as they were still, let's say, beta versions. But what if one day the wrong virus appears? That biological upgrade combining the worst traits of all the previous ones. Imagine something with the transmission speed of the Spanish flu, the deadliness of smallpox, and the resilience of HIV. It would basically be humanity's final patch. Game over with no continue. Scientists keep warning about mutations, zoonoses, and new pathogens hiding in forests, thawing in glaciers, or circulating in markets full of bats, just waiting for their moment to say hello. And the scariest part? We might not even notice when it arrives. It could start with a strange cough in some remote corner, and within months, it could be at your doorstep. Inevitable irony, maybe humanity's true final villain doesn't need spaceships or laser beams. Just one well-placed sneeze. The invisible enemy was always here. In the end, it wasn't giant meteors, laser-wielding aliens, or explosive volcanoes that threatened our existence the most. The real enemy has always fit inside a single drop of saliva. Centuries of history have shown that one well-timed virus is enough to bring all of humanity to its knees. Empires fell, wars were decided, and the world stopped more than once because of something invisible to the naked eye. If we're here today, it's less due to brilliance and more due to sheer stubbornness. And, of course, a healthy dose of luck. We survived by adapting, improvising, and sometimes just waiting out the storm. The reminder is clear. The enemy was never out there. It was always inside us.
And now that you've seen how humanity almost got deleted by killer sneezes, here's the deal. Subscribe to the channel before the next virus decides to wipe out your Wi-Fi for good. Hit that notification bell too, because when the world stops again, at least you'll get the update. And don't forget to drop a like. It's the only thing we can spread without a quarantine. Think of it this way. If history repeats itself, and it always does, this might be your last chance to click on something that won't leave you stuck in bed.